What's the worst thing a woman has done on the first date? I showed up to grab a drink and she was already blacked out. Chatted for 30 minutes and left. The next day, she messaged me asking why I never showed. Showing up to the bar 7 hours early and proceeding to get blackout drunk while repeatedly texting me throughout my workday saying I should just come now is the first thing that comes to mind. The most confusing one I've ever had was when I met this girl at this place. We sit down, some nonchalant BSing, normal stuff. She asked me when my birthday was. I told her. She goes, "Oh, you're a Leo? What the fuck?" And she got up and stormed out. I was like, I may have just dodged a super ultimate bullet there. She referred to her 3 daughters as cunts in a conversation without me even knowing she had children. Yeah, cut that night short. Funny enough, she was the ex of coworker, and that created a whole new level of drama. Only talk about her ex and the breakup, talking in details about all of it, and refused to change the subject. The best part is the breakup happened when she was 22. She's 35 now. Fun times that was. Brought a friend to dinner. Okay, sure, bring a buddy, I suppose. But the friend wanted to sit at the table and not the bar so we could have some privacy. And they both thought I was going to pay for dinner for all of us, and drinks. And friend made it clear she was only there to cockblock because her friend liked to sleep with guys and she was there to prevent that. I kind of felt like I was being accused of a sex crime. I just looked them both in the eye, told them, "I ain't the one," and left. This was before we even got our drinks too. Told me she was pregnant by her roommate fiancé? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I met a girl via a dating app. Wasn't instant sparks or anything, but she seemed nice enough and we had some shared interests, so I invited her out for dinner and she accepted. She showed up to the date looking like she'd rolled out of bed. Sweatpants, a plain t-shirt, zero makeup. I'm not someone who thinks a first date needs to be all dressed up and formal, but it was clear she had put zero effort into her appearance. We sit down to eat and she absolutely refuses to engage in the conversation. Every question I asked got a 1 or 2 word answer with zero follow-up. Have you ever been to this restaurant before? No. How's your week going? Fine. I saw on your profile you coach Little League softball. That must be a lot of fun. It's okay. The entire time. It was painful. I finished my meal quickly, walked her to her car, thanked her for her time and left. Later that night, she sent a text saying, "I had fun tonight." I figured she was just being polite, so I didn't respond. The next morning, I woke up to a text with multiple paragraphs from her, calling me a jerk for ghosting her and saying how if I wasn't interested in seeing her, I should be upfront and say so. It was, and I'm not exaggerating, several times as many words as she'd spoken the entire date. To this day, I'm perplexed by the whole thing. All I can figure is maybe she was really anxious or something on the date. It was bizarre. We had previously agreed on a restaurant, time, and to just do separate bills, to which I would offer to pick up hers at the end to be polite. I arrived on time and MSG'd that I was there. I got a reply stating she was already inside and seated. The server had just bought her another glass of wine and was walking away with an empty wine glass and a shot glass. The first words out of her mouth weren't even hello, they were, "You're paying, right?" I don't have any money. I didn't breathe a word. I just turned around and left. We had ordered drinks and an appetizer after she picked one of the most expensive restaurants in town. She took a few sips and then asked me about my job. I explained a little bit about it, said it was pretty boring unless you are a software firmware network nerd, and asked her about her. She asks, "Does it pay well?" I kinda agree and then try a second time to change subject. She says, "I'm asking you how much you make, because I don't want to waste my time on someone who is broke." I tell her that it's complicated because when you get to a certain level at a company, you become a flight risk, but also a risk to their long-term strategy as you are considered a strategic asset. So they won't overpay you, but your salary is basically name your price. She says, "Do you make more than $250,000 a year or not?" That's when I knew it was unsalvageable. She was not just tactless, but rude as well. Also, she would invariably be the type of person to think they should spend all the money as fast as they could. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, Image thinking. $250,000 a year is a lot of money. Paid for the food, tipped stupidly, and left. It was the only date where I felt like I couldn't continue it. This was back in my high school days around 2002 to 2003. A girl from the cheerleading team asked me out, and of course I said, absolutely. It was a Friday night movie date, simple date, movie, and maybe some ice cream afterwards. I showed up 15 minutes early to buy the tickets. Movie was her choice, communicated during our initial date conversation. I waited in the concessions area. 15 minutes goes by, no call, no show. For you kids. This was before the first iPhone existed. God, I am old. No message on my Nokia phone. I still have it, and it still works. I wait another 15 minutes and the movie is about to start. Still no call, no show. I wait another 10 minutes before I head into the movie by myself. I hated the movie. It was called 13. After the movie was done, no call, no show. So I went home. Next Monday, a bunch of the guys in my class and girls were all asking how my date went while snickering. I was set up on a fake date. Bragged about stealing, yes, literally stealing behind his back, her last boyfriend's Gucci watch. Then proceeded to complain about her last date for being too fat. Then genuinely got offended I had an Android phone instead of an Apple. Real nice person. She was late and explained that she needed to break into her ex's house, who she broke up with less than a week before. Real quick. She then showed me her bad, unflattering nudes that she posted on Reddit. Edit. I do not remember where the nudes were posted. Rolled her eyes over the idea that I researched where to take her on a date. It was a cafe with a harpist. That shit was magical. OMG, I have one. A beautiful girl in my college class invited me on a date. We were in the same study group and fast became friends, hanging out on breaks and meeting up at the library. She picked a fairly upscale restaurant, at least for college kids. She dressed to impress, and she was comedic, animated, and held a great conversation. She was very flirty, and I knew where this was heading afterward. The bill comes. It's more pricey than I hoped. We were drinking a fair amount, but she grabbed the check. I offer to pay my share and she rejects it. She says her dad's a dentist and gives her plenty of money. I, on the other hand, pay for my own school, rent and bills by working at a restaurant, eating leftovers off of plates and scrapping by. So I was stoked that she invited me, is paying for the date, and clearly, she is planning on using me for hot sex. Then, her debit card is rejected. And her credit card. And her other card. She is turning multiple shades of red, talks about must be fraud, etc. I serve tables, I just make eye contact with the server, and we both play along with her. Server leaves to try the card one last time. I excuse myself from the table, catch up with the server and tell her to run my card, but I may be short and certainly don't have enough to pay a tip. I promise I'll come back with the difference and a tip before closing. That taken care of, we head to her car, but she can't drive, I dare not. My apt is close by, but she insists on driving. I make a move to kiss her, she gets sloppy with me, so distracted I take her keys from her coat pocket. I tease her with the keys, say I'll drive because it's confusing where to park at my place. She is in the passenger seat. I actually have no intent to drive, but I needed time to figure out the next moves. I have to get money and go back, so I'm not stiffing the server, but I need to gracefully exit the date. Problem solves itself. She looks me dead in the eyes and says drunkenly something like, I will suck your dick all night if you pick up some coke. You work at a restaurant, right? You know someone. The entire evening just made sense. Up to that point, I was sympathetic, thinking how embarrassed she must be. Now, I'm pretty pissed. So, I decided to drive her back to her apartment through a stream of begging, sobbing, then yelling, and all the antics you could guess. I walk towards her apartment. She's following, trying to pull me back. Roommate hears a ruckus and intervenes, although confused AF. My date is so worked up that she starts to yak on the walkway. Roommate sees her GF is super drunk, so corrals her inside, where, with vomit on her dress, all of a sudden seems totally oblivious to the entire night, is acting all cute again, saying how great the date was, do I want to come inside, etc., etc. I quietly hand the car keys to roommate, who is pulling her inside. I bail. Rest of the night, I'm off to my work where I barter friends for some cash. I then rush back to the restaurant and catch our server in the bar area. She stuck around with other off-the-clock friends just in case I returned. The place was basically closed at this point. So I settled up with her, although with about $8 in change. The group had heard all about my date, so they invited me to sit and share the rest of the story. Bar comped me a beer, so I started, "Tonight was the worst date in the history of dates." I don't have any total horror stories, but when I was away at school, like 2 hours away from home, I matched with a girl from my hometown when visiting my parents. We talked for a few days and she wanted to meet for dinner, but I had already gone back to school and it was the middle of the week. So I skipped an evening lecture to go see this girl. As a horny 19-year-old, this seemed like a good idea. And drove 2 hours in the dark and snow. Got to the restaurant, and when I went to message her that I was there, I found she had deleted me off everything. I texted her. We didn't text often, but I had her number, and got no response. Still have no idea why she did this, but she was well aware I was driving 2 hours to meet her. The last message she sent me was after I told her I was leaving, telling me to drive safe. Not sure what changed during the 2 hours I was in the car, but I never heard from her again. Needless to say, my parents got a surprise visit from me that night, and I didn't feel like telling them why. Snapped her fingers at the waitress to get her attention. Alright, I was talking to this girl for a while online and we were hitting it off great, common interests, can't stop talking, all the cutesy stuff. We set up a meet to chill at my place. I'm sitting there all excited BC, I'm gonna get some cat. I get a text, she here. I run outside to see a big-ass pickup truck, her in the back seat, and her parents in the front, y'all. I was 23 at the time and just kind of looked at them. Her dad leans out the window and goes, "You know she's 17, right? Like, it's fine, but you're the legal adult for a bit, so don't let her get into nothing." Bro, what? Felt like Pops was pimping out his kid to me. I just noped the fuck out of there and walked back in my house, deleted, unblocked her on everything. And about a month later got a snap from her along with a picture of my house talking about, "It's my birthday, we can be together now." So yeah, I stopped talking to strangers on the internet after that. Where do I begin? Within 5 minutes, she told me she just broke off an engagement. 10 minutes later, she said she went out with a guy the previous week, hit it off with him. But then when he went to the bathroom, she left the bar with another guy in a cab. Told me to buy her drinks. Said I'd be sitting at the table while she's in the bathroom. I look up 10 minutes later and she's talking to the bartender drinking. Asked her what's up. She said she didn't see me. I drank her beer and left. Texted her that I had a great time sarcastically and said she wanted to meet up again. Wacko. She brought her kid that she didn't mention. She looked nothing like her photos. Invited me back to her place, which looked it hadn't seen a cleaning product since it was built. Did blowtorch dabs for 20 minutes before acting like it was time for me to take her to bed. I said I needed something from my car and left. She still texted the next day asking when date 2 would be. Decided to go into detail how she was molested by a friend's father from ages 8 to 14. And then, when I was trying to digest all that info, she started planning our summer vacation the next year. She called me racist for calling a black person George. The guy's name was George and he's a friend of mine. Both of us looked at each other. Turns out racists used to call black people George at one point. Either way, she refused to apologize or act like she made a mistake, so George asked me if I wanted to join his group. Only time I have ever ditched a first date. After dinner, she asked me to drop her off at her friend's house. She talked shit about my dog and said he looks ugly. Kicked her to the curb real quick. 2012-ish, hit up the eHarmony game. Met a cute nurse, and we met for dinner one night. Dinner turned into drinks. Drinks turned into my place. 10 minutes after we're done, snuggling in bed. So now you're gonna throw me away just like all the rest, and not in some sad or damaged voice? Fucking angry voice. What? You're all the same, just fuck me and throw me away. If I'm pregnant, don't worry, I'll take care of it and you don't need to know. I'm floored. Asking what's wrong, where's this coming from? Devolves into this crazy situation where she's crying and yelling at me, and I'm trying to calm her down. I told her I thought it'd be a good idea if she left. She said she'd call the cops. I ended up having a sleepless night with her later, and then goodbyes and see you soons in the morning. Chatted with her just enough to get some CYA materials. Ooh, why'd you say you were gonna call the cops? I didn't do anything. Sorry, honey, I know, but I was angry and just saying crazy things to make you scared. But that's okay. Now's blocked. Spent weeks expecting her to jump out of the bushes and stab me or something whenever I went in and out of the apartment building. She spent the entire time talking about Julia Roberts. Like it was brought up so much, like half the night was spent discussing her love for Julia Roberts. I was neutral on Julia Roberts at that point, but after the date, I didn't like her out of spite. Sheesh. A Tinder match once invited me out to meet with her and some friends at a bar. When I got there, she was making out with some other guy. Worst of all, she tried to deny it. Told me I had 12 months to propose. I proposed that we get the bill because I had to wash my dog's hair. I once went on a date with a girl who I swear had absolutely nothing going on between the ears. She was good-looking, cute in the way I like, but my God, it was like carrying on a conversation with a naive rock. I am a mostly gay man. At some point in time after a bad breakup, I decided to explore a bit. There was this one girl that I liked, and we talked for a bit before going out. I knew she had lost a kid to some crazy drama involving the father's family. She knew I was gay, and this was new for me. She loved that shit for some odd reason. We go out. It goes well. We go back to my place. It gets hot, she says. You don't have to use a condom. I'm on birth control. I'm like, I absolutely do. We start fucking and she reaches down and pulls it off. I firmly assert that we need this. But I want to have your baby. Bruh, what the fuck? Was in the bathroom a long time. She was going through my medicine cabinet, checking labels. This isn't terrible as much as it was very strange. I'm from upstate New York. She was from Florida. She had made several questionably accurate statements throughout the night, but I finally said something when she claimed lacrosse originated from Florida. It's pretty well established it came from the Iroquois tribes of western central New York. She proceeded to open Wikipedia and read the entry while inserting Florida throughout in an attempt to prove her point. I dropped it, but checked when I went home and she was just openly lying. Told me I shouldn't let others know I'm in therapy. I was a bit late to the date due to this. Then told me she's technically still married, but she ran from her abusive husband, wanted to call things here, but we were at my favorite pizza joint. Is very drunk as she has been there a few hours. Picks a fight with the table next to us. Leaves to go smoke for 30 minutes. Tries sticking me with a $200 bill racked up by her and a friend of hers. Paid for my pizza and got the fuck out of there after apologizing to the table next to me. Went out with a girl to a concert, aux live band karaoke. I got there first and chilled with a drink. She acted like she didn't see me, then texted me to hurry up because she was there. Then told me about every dude she hooked up that we passed at the concert. There were multiple. She got really drunk, made a fool out of herself on stage, drugged me around all night, and asked me to hang out with her in her car. Then she started crying because she didn't want to be alone with a stranger but also didn't want to be alone, so could I please wait until her other male friend got there? She asked me to sit in the back because her friend always sits up front. I dipped out after that last one. Girl was a train wreck. I went in for a hug and she jumped 3 feet back. Anyway, we're married now. Pooped her pants in my car on the way home. Had been talking to this woman for a couple weeks and we decided to go out on a date. She lived about 5 to 10 minutes from where I was at and called me right before I pulled in her neighborhood and said, I need more time, give me like 30 minutes. Okay, cool. So I just drove around listening to music for about 30 minutes and then went to her house. I knocked on the door, and she answered and said to give her about 10 minutes. I went back to my truck and sat and waited. 10 minutes passed, then 20 minutes, then a car pulls up behind me, and it is her gay friend he runs in her house with a 6-pack of wine coolers, blocking me in her driveway. Finally, after about an hour, her friend comes out and says, she's coming. About 10 minutes later, she comes out drunk off her ass. I still took her out that night, and we ended up dating for a year. Looking back at it, I think I was only sticking around her because of depression issues and loneliness. Had went through a rough divorce 6 months earlier. Needless to say, lesson learned. She told me to pay for the meal, as a way of repaying her for her time spent applying makeup. She asked for the date. Matched with a girl on Tinder who invited me to her stand-up comedy routine, and then proceeded to tell jokes about how disgusting the guys she meets on Tinder are. It was like something from a sitcom. They weren't even good jokes. She had no punchlines. One was just about a guy who had a strap on in his profile pic and nothing after it. So I heckled her with a fine, "I'll just change the picture," and then left. Got a couple of laughs though. Told her I wanted to use my law degree to help out with humanitarian purposes. She proceeded to go on a rant about how Syrian immigrants were worse than the rats in her country. Left promptly during her bathroom break. Thanks for tuning in. Have any crazy first date stories of your own? Share them in the comments. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more wild Reddit stories. See you next time.